Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to be reunited with world-class trainer Kevin Barry. How are you? It's been a long time.
Adam, I'm doing really well, mate, and it's nice to be on Pro Boxing Fans with you.
Yes, delighted to have you on, man. I was delighted when you text back, especially after such a long time. So tell me, you told me you're in a couple of days quarantine. Is that what, a couple of weeks quarantine?
Well, it's a 2-week period. We're just starting day 4 this morning. We had first COVID test on day 3, and it's pretty slow going here and a little bit monotonous and boring, but we're making the most of it. As you can see, I'm doing a bit of media. This is my 3rd interview for the morning.
Yeah. So this is like a home studio you've got here in the back with the advertising.
No, this is my bedroom.
This is your bedroom. It doesn't look like a normal bedroom.
Hey, to be completely honest, my wife was up there on the windowsill yesterday, tiptoeing around on her toes, and she was tying this banner up for my sponsor wall behind me. So without her being here, it wouldn't have happened.
You could have lied. You could have said you were in some jazzy studio. But anyway, from, if I'm right in thinking, New Zealand's now doing quite well with the coronavirus pandemic. There's not been many cases for a few days.
New Zealand has actually done very well right throughout the last 6 months. They've actually been world leaders in the way they've handled it. They closed the borders down very, very early and protected the country. And I think the total number of deaths in New Zealand have been below 20.
Really?
Yes, they've done an amazing job. What they're doing at the moment is the whole country's at level 1. They've got full crowds in stadiums. There was an All Black Australia Bledisloe Cup rugby test yesterday that had 35,000 people in Wellington. We've got a big fight coming up on December the 11th.
Yes.
We've got a capacity crowd of about 14,000. So, we're very lucky to be in this situation when you look at what's going on in the UK and especially in the US at the moment.
So that is music to my ears. 14,000 cheering boxing fans in at a fight. So, what is there no 2-meter thing going on there? You can just get people in because you've kind of got it under control by then, especially by December. No, that's the plan.
It's level 1. There's no masks. There's masks, obviously, for me here at the moment while we're doing this 2-week quarantine.
Yeah.
Everywhere we go, when we answer the door for our breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you have to have a mask on, and then they knock the door. They ask you to wait 5 seconds. They move away from the door. You open it. You bring your meals in. We've got a couple of opportunities a day when we can leave the room with the mask on, go downstairs. There's a very small area that's been fenced off that you can walk around. And as I said to my wife yesterday, now I know how an animal feels. At the zoo, you're just literally walking around the perimeter of the fence. It takes about 15, 20 seconds for one lap.
Oh man, yeah, I can imagine. It's funny. Yeah, I went to a zoo recently. And I was thinking, that is rubbish. But anyway, we're going a bit deep there. Let's talk about the main man, JP, Joseph Parker, in like a domestic grudge match. I wouldn't have, especially like a year ago, I wouldn't have seen this fight coming.
Well, I'll tell you what, I don't think it's really a grudge match, but it's a fight that's really captured the imagination of a lot of people in New Zealand. And without the circumstances that we find ourselves in at the moment, this fight probably wouldn't have happened this year.
Yeah.
But, for a start off, Joe was really lucky that we got a fight in at the end of February against Shaundell Winters in Texas. And after that, our plans were, he was going to come back home for 6 weeks. We get straight back into camp. This was going to be a busy year for us. And we were going to try and make up some of the time we lost last year. And then the pandemic hit. As I just mentioned before, New Zealand's been one of the countries that has done a really good job of managing this, which means, the opportunity presented itself for number 6 heavyweight in the WBO Junior FAR to fight number 3 heavyweight in the WBO Joseph Parker. And we've always known that this fight was going to happen, but nobody expected it to happen this year until the circumstances changed. And with the borders, being closed, and with no crowds in America, no crowds in the UK, things are sort of spiking also in both those countries. And with New Zealand sitting there at level 1, the opportunity presented itself for us to look at staging this fight in New Zealand. And it's a big fight in New Zealand. These guys, they have history. They've fought 4 times in the amateurs. Junior won the first fight. Joe won fights 2 and 3, and then Junior won fight 4. And fight 4 was the box off trials to make the Olympic team. And Junior beat Joe in that, so Joe never went to the Olympics. So afterwards, Joe, obviously he decided to turn professional, and the rest is history. We're 8 years into his professional career. He won the world title in his 4th year, defended it a couple of times, and found himself fighting some of the biggest names in world boxing. Junior turned pro 4 years after Joe. And, he's undefeated. He's 19-0. He's a big, strong guy. He's been improving and developing, hasn't had the opportunities, that Joseph Parker has had. But that's what makes this such an intriguing fight here in New Zealand.
Bit of a Dillian White, Anthony Joshua vibe for any UK.
A little bit, yeah. There's a similar. Yeah. There's definitely some similarities there. These guys, they know each other pretty well. As I mentioned before, I didn't think this fight would happen this year.
Yeah.
But we're in a worldwide pandemic, and then I look back and I looked at where Joseph Parker was when he was 19-0, and when Joe was 19-0, we put him in with a guy called Carlos Takam, who was 33-2, and we all, everyone knows who Carlos Takam is. Yeah, he's a proven world-class fighter, and it was the biggest test of Joseph Parker's career. And, it was a hell of a war. And, we got up in a very close decision at the end, but that was the beginning for us. It was for the #1 position in the IBF. And then, of course, Joe also went to #1 in the WBO and fought Andy Ruiz for the title, and winning it in December of 2016. But now we have Junior at 19-0, and he's fighting a 27-2 Joseph Parker, former world heavyweight champion, man who defended the title twice, man who's the first guy to take Anthony Joshua the 12 rounds, had a war with Dillian White, fought some other big names, beating Ruiz, beating Huey Fury. So this is, as Carlos Takam was, our first real big world-class fight at 19-0. At 19-0 for Junior Farr, Joseph Parker is his first world-class fight. So, as Joe had to rise to the occasion against the experienced Carlos Takam, Junior needs to do the same thing. Yeah. And I'm very, very sure that in a fight like this, sure, Parker's got to be the favorite. He's got the experience. He's got the wins behind him. But, Junior Farr is still developing. He's still improving. We haven't seen the best of Junior Farr. And it's, can he step up enough to beat Joseph Parker? Well, he thinks he can because he beat him twice in the amateurs. But that's what makes this such an exciting, an exciting, meaningful fight here in New Zealand.
Especially with 2 New Zealanders as well. Yeah. It's interesting how you look at that, Kevin. I remember talking a couple of years ago, and you weren't Junior Farr. Just, I think at the time he was about 7 or 8-0 at the time, and his name was starting to come up. And Joe was obviously, winning a world title and things like that, or on the verge of, or that sort of period I'm talking of. And I remember at the time talking to you about Junior Farr on an interview, and you weren't like disrespectful, but you were like reasonably dismissive. You were like, he's got a long way to come yet. How do you think he's done in that period? Like, do you think he's improved a lot? You said he's had to come up a different type of way.
Well, look, when you say what you just said, let's remember, Junior's only been a pro for 4 years, and you and I haven't talked to each other for 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
So when you would have asked me that question, he would have been in his first or second year as a pro. So, he had so much to prove. And for him to be even talked about in the same sentence as Joseph Parker at that time would be totally disrespectful, because Joe 4 years ago was the WBO World Heavyweight Champion.
Of course, yeah.
Now, wind the clock forward 4 years, Junior is now 19-0. He's sitting there at number 6 with the World Boxing Organization. So, his team have done a very good job in getting him to that position, in choosing his fights, keeping him undefeated. And the fact that Joe is sitting there at 3 in the world with the WBO and Junior at 6, this makes this a very purposeful fight for the WBO, and a fight that we're going to lobby hard for the number 2 position that Daniel Dubois just moved in. He just let frog Joseph Parker, who was sitting there at number 2, and pushed Joe back to 3s. But we think that if you've got 3 fighting 6, there's a pretty good chance that the winner could go to number 2. So it's a big fight. It's a life-changing fight for Junior Fa. And it's a fight for Joseph Parker where all the pressure is on Joe in this fight. The expectations are all for Parker. We know that the winner of this fight will possibly be straight into a mandatory box-off. And literally, after this, the winner of this fight would be 1 win away from fighting for the world title. So there's so much at stake in this fight.
Yeah. Well, it could even be the next fight if the WBO's relinquished, which it could well be.
Which looks very likely that's going to happen. And then that's what makes this fight more significant than
it
ever.
Is,
Is the fact that there's a very, very high possibility that Anthony Joshua will walk away from the WBO belt to take those 2 massive fights against Tyson Fury next year, providing they both can win their next fights. Now, with that being said, the winner of Parker and Fa will find himself in a very, very good position. So the stakes are very high in this fight. And for Junior, for a guy that, he hasn't had these opportunities. He hasn't been, in the real limelight. And this fight will not only go live in New Zealand, but it's going live in the USA. It's going live in the UK. It'll be seen in a lot of countries around the world. This is a big, big fight, and a chance for Junior Fa to step up and say, well, I've been a pro now for 4 years. Parker won the world title in his 4th year. Now it's my turn.
Yeah. What's the mood? But obviously, you haven't been able to really socialize with anyone. But
the mood at the moment is friggin' very, very boring.
Okay, stupid question.
I've been thrashing my wife playing her at cards over the last 3-4 days. You can only beat your wife so many times at cards.
True, very true. Good advice,
mate. I've been getting a bit of media in. I've got this is Monday here in New Zealand, so there's obviously a lot of work being done around the fight. I'm putting a lot of systems in place for our training camp that will start as soon as I get out of quarantine on the 22nd of October. We'll do a 7-week camp before fighting on December 11.
So that's worked out. You've got that all kind of nicely spaced out. So that's good to hear. I was going to ask about that. I wanted to ask about, obviously, Usyk-Chisora, because that is who you'll be, probably going up against. What do you make of that fight? What do you make of that?
Oh, look, I think it's a good fight for the fans. It's a fight that I think most people looking at that fight from the outside think on paper it's going to be a sensational fight. A lot of people have been surprised by the form of Derek Chisora in the last couple of years when he looked like his career was done and dusted. He's produced some really good performances. Like the 2 fights with Dillian White were huge. He's throwing a couple of nice knockout wins after that. He seemed to be rejuvenated, changing his team around a little bit. He looks good, but the more I look at this fight, the clearer it becomes to me, that Oleksandr Usyk was a tremendous cruiserweight, one of the most skillful fighters that we've ever seen. There is no way. I think, look, let me stop. Let me correct myself. A lot of people are looking at the Chaz Witherspoon fight and saying, oh my God, he fights like that against Derek Chisora. That was his first fight at heavyweight. He put a lot of weight on. His body hadn't caught up. It hadn't made the adjustment. We know that Usyk is a better fighter than that. And there is the team that he has around him is a very smart, a very clever boxing team. They're sitting there in the mandatory. If they thought there was any chance of a 50-50 fight or any chance that they could get, come unstuck, they would never, ever have taken this fight. There are 20 other opponents out there that the television networks would have accepted, the boxing media would have accepted, that the promoters would have accepted. They chose Chisora. They chose him because they know that the angles, the footwork, the hand speed, the skill set of Usyk is far superior to Derek Chisora.
I completely agree with you, Kevin. Couldn't agree more. Yeah. Love Chisora. But
hey, you thought the silence for 1 or 2 seconds. I thought you were going to disagree.
No, not at all. Not at all. I've seen him in the flesh once against Bradis, in fact, was pretty one of the.
That was a tough fight.
What a fight, man! I just think he's something.
That's a guy. That's a guy. Bradis is the guy that will sneak up on a lot of people, and a lot of people don't know who he is for a start, and two, don't know his story. That guy is a very, very good fighter.
Very, very impressive. So there's a lot going on at heavyweight. Obviously, it's great to hear you guys are back in the ring. It sounds like you're taking it seriously. I think it's great for the region. Let's get onto that actually. Eddie Hearn, Matchroom Boxing. I remember speaking to you. That's the last time we spoke in the lead up to that fight. Yeah.
Which fight? The Joshua fight, the White fight.
The Dillian White fight, that's it. The Joshua fight, and then the second, the Dillian White. You were like, "Wow, we were really happy with how we were working with Matchroom." Obviously, he's now gone on like co-promoted by Matchroom, and Eddie Hearn was saying in an interview the other day.
Well, actually, Eddie Hearn is our promoter.
Is your real main promoter? Fantastic, even better.
Yes.
So he was saying in an interview the other day, he's hoping to come out. Big hopes for the area. Oceania, New Zealand, Australia, the whole thing. That must be exciting. And the fact we've now got another contender at heavyweight in New Zealand, since we were speaking about, Joseph Parker was the only one, that kind of adds to what I was just saying. Yeah. Well, how's that going?
I've got to tell you what, really, it's unbelievable that a small country like New Zealand at the bottom of the world finds itself with, two of their heavyweights, two of their favorite sons, both ranked inside the top 6 with the WBO. It's really, really exciting. And, and because of that, and because of what's going on with the WBO, the significance for this fight is huge. And that's why, Joseph Parker, even being the warm favorite, he knows that the upside in this fight for us is our opportunity to get back into title contention. Yeah. Junior Farr knows that a win here against Joseph Parker, and let's remember, he beat Joe twice in the amateurs, so he knows what it feels like to beat him. But a win here will be life-changing for Junior Farr.
Yeah,
it will put him to be in the box off to fight for the heavyweight championship of the world. Now, he's watched he's watched what Joseph Parker has done. He, as I mentioned to you earlier, he turned pro 4 years after Joe, and I think one of the reasons why he did that, I don't know whether there was any, whether it was ever part of his plan before seeing the success of Joseph Parker to make that transition. But when he saw what was happening to Joe, the live fights on television here in New Zealand, the profile that he was building, the way he was developing, and then he thought of himself and he thought, God, you know, we're 2-2 in the amateurs. You know, I can do, if Parker can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
And that's when he started focusing on, okay, I'm going to give this a go. I'm going to make a career. And look, he is a big, strong, powerful guy. You know, it's a fight that, you know, we have to get things right in this fight against Junior Farr. And it's very, very important that Joe uses every bit of experience that he's obtained in the last 8 years to control everything about this fight. We don't want Junior to get comfortable at all. It's a big step up for him. It's a big step mentally. It's a big step up in class. But, you know, Parker has been there. He's been in the big arenas. He's been in front of the big crowds. You know, this is something that you know, you don't just teach a fighter that. This is something that you learn. It's a feeling and a belief. And, you know, Junior's going to have to get up to speed with that very quickly.
Yeah. And the relationship with Matchroom, how's that going?
Well, we've got one fight left in the contract,
Okay.
which is after the Farr fight. There's one fight left.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, you know, but you know, the relationship's been good. You know, we had, as you mentioned before, Joe had an injury last year with the spider bite, which stopped the Chisora fight. You know, Eddie, we said, mate, you've got to get us going again. And we were lucky. We had that fight with Shaundell Winters in February of this year. So, you know, Eddie's been very supportive. He's been good to work with. Joe likes him. You know, we just got to make sure that that we keep performing, because, you know, the better you perform and the better you look, the better the promoter's going to take care of you.
So yeah, we're in a pretty exciting situation for New Zealand. You could be in a position where you see more big fights come to New Zealand. This is a great example with, I know obviously you've got to get foreign people in, but the fact that you can have 14,000 people at a boxing show is something pretty special at the moment. That must be exciting for everyone in the region.
Oh, look, it's highly exciting. And, you know, the fact that all the fans have been deprived of sporting events for months and months, you know, for things now to open up and for you to be able to go to a rugby game and a rugby league game and now, you know, a major world-class boxing event, you know, the fans are very excited about that. Just let me correct you when you're saying that we can bring the foreign crowd in. The only reason why I'm in here is because I have a New Zealand passport. It's pretty hard without having a New Zealand passport to actually get into New Zealand. You've got to jump through multiple hoops, massive amounts of paperwork to be able to come into the country just to conduct business at the moment.
Okay, interesting. So we'll end on this. How is Joseph Parker? How's he doing? Obviously, I doubt you've seen him. How's Joe at the moment?
Okay, look, Joe's in very, very good spirits. He's highly excited that we've been able to put this fight together. The negotiation phrase went for about 6 months. We were originally trying to make this fight for October, but Junior Farr's team, they held out. They got more money. They did a pretty good job with the business side of things. It allowed us a little bit more time to build this fight up and to you know, get a good media plan in place. Joe's been, since the fight in February, he's been training all the way through this. I said to him, mate, opportunities will present themselves and we have to be ready. And he stayed he stayed on path very, very well. He's probably the strongest he's ever been throughout his career. He's done a lot of power and explosive strength work. His weight is very good. His fitness level is very good, and he's he's excited to start this training camp and to let his hands go. So, Joe couldn't be happier that we've been able to salvage 2020 with a fight in February and now finishing the year off with a fight December 11th at the Spark Arena in Auckland, New Zealand.
Well, fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Kevin Barry.